On this very bumpy road, in this somewhat bumpy truck, I am in a truck that I care very deeply about. This is my dad's truck. It is a 2016 Ram 2500 HD with a G56 manual transmission. And has anybody ever seen Gran Torino? Right here is one of the many places they shot the closing scene with the young man and young woman in Clint Eastwood's Gran Torino. And this is Lake St. Clair. We're on Jefferson, and I am driving a vehicle that means a whole lot to me because this was my dad's truck, is my dad's truck, and we got a lot of fond memories in this truck. And it's kind of funny how it's fire engine red, just like my dad's Duramax was. So a lot of the memories that I remember in the Duramax kind of like jumped over into this truck. So as many of you guys know, I've mentioned this to my viewers before on YouTube, my dad has late stage ALS, so it's been a challenge, and like I said, I've tried to make videos through the situation, and therefore my upload schedule gets a little bit funky, and I apologize about that. But today I want to talk about a truck, the best truck ever made that you can't buy anymore. Now, because of my dad's knee replacement in December, and then this spring immediately starting to have what turned out to be the symptoms of ALS, this truck has not been driven very much this year. This 968-mile fuel tank, which I'm just about to fill up the tank for, if I make it to Kroger without running out of fuel, which would be bad, is reflective of his last fuel tank that he had coming home from Lake Tahoe, California. So, 16.5 average mile a gallon for this tank of fuel includes towing a 10,000-pound boat across continental United States, or at least a good part of it. That fuel is probably somewhere west of St. Louis, I would imagine, whatever. This truck has an incredible amount of fuel range. It has always gotten absolutely incredible fuel economy. In fact, if we hit the back button here, go to trip B, if I'm not mistaken, this is a lot, 6,000 mile average, 16.4 miles a gallon. This truck is undeleted, all original, 100%. We have never had a DPF or any type of emission issue. No EGR issues, no any type of issues. The truck only has 51,000 miles on it. So this is when I talk about on my YouTube channel about how diesels, the whole thing about how if you don't drive them, they just suddenly like fall apart. That is just a little bit of an overbloated statement. Sure, it's good to drive a diesel. Sure, it's good to get it hot. But if you have something come up in your life, or like if you're in the military and you get deployed, your truck's gonna be waiting for you, happy to see you when you get back. You know, there's no reason to freak that, oh, I have a diesel, it's this, you know, crazy hot rod that if I don't drive it, it's gonna die. That is just not how it works. Sorry about that. Grosse Pointe PD was there, and I didn't want to, you know, I'm not sure the legalities of Michigan about filming while driving. I mean, you know, there's all these rules these days. But anyway, this truck has been phenomenally reliable. It has had one major issue. We had to replace the clutch at 32,000 miles. Why? Because the rear valve cover gasket failed, allowing oil to leak down the back of the engine, which we didn't see, and it went right down into a breather on the bell housing and covered the clutch and flywheel in oil. Not that much. It wasn't leaking that much, but any amount with a dry clutch of oil on it is bad. It was fully replaced by Ram with a great big apology. It took about a week and a half to get parts. The new valve cover gasket, brand new flywheel, brand new clutch, and of course the whole clutch assembly, the pressure plate, and you know, the whole thing. So that was all done by Ram. So thank you to them. That is the only trouble that this truck has ever had, and it sounds like that is a really unusual issue. And because it's a manual trans, if you had an automatic, you wouldn't have actually had an issue with that. You actually would have just had an oil leak that you were like, where's this oil coming from? And it wouldn't have negatively affected you. It just because it dripped on the clutch. I was driving it when it happened, and it was pretty amazing. I noticed a slight slip at full throttle when I was driving it. I was towing, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't feel good. This was in between me trading in my Power Wagon and my 2019 Power Stroke coming in. And I was driving this a little bit, doing some chores. And I noticed it slip. I went straight home, unhooked the trailer because I was already done doing chores and it wasn't necessary that I still had it. and I was attempting to drive it home, and from the first slip, which was at a higher load situation, to maybe 60 miles later, the truck went from being drivable to darn near undrivable. I mean, I'm talking like right now, the clutch would be slipping. Low load, 1500 RPM, fifth gear, just cruising. The clutch would slip. It was amazing to me how quickly that degraded. So, one caveat, but I don't believe that that's enough to not like a truck before. I mean, it happened. We've gone double the distance now that it... Oh, no, we haven't. I guess it was at 31,000 miles. We haven't gone double the distance, excuse me. At any rate, why do I say this is the best truck ever made? Well, it's not exactly the best truck ever made for all people, but hear me out. This is a 2500 crew cab, short bed with ram boxes, with a G56 and a manual T-case. In my mind, that's one of the most indestructible combinations you could ever have, and it's the most practical for us. When my dad ordered this truck, just like when I got my 2019 6.7 Power Stroke, the goal was to tow 10,000 pound sailboat. Well, sailboat and trailer. I'm going to give you the full number, not just, one thing. 10,000 pound worth of sailboat and trailer, about 13 to 14, maybe 15,000 pounds. We've never measured it. It's higher than 13, 14, 15,000 pounds of powerboat and trailer. And then race car trailers, piddly stuff, little stuff. So, on average, 6,000 to 12,000 pounds with an outlier being heavier, of which this truck is excellent for. This truck has the multi-link coil rear suspension, which I love. It is not the best for maximum payload. If you have a sliding camper, you're not going to be a fan of it. If you have a giant gooseneck, if you're towing big stuff over basically 12,000 pounds, you're not going to like it. The powerboat trailer is very well designed. It is triple axle, and the boat is properly weight distributed on the trailer. There is no downside of towing 14 or 15,000 pounds in that condition, because that boat and trailer is so well matched together that the tongue load is basically perfect. It was a custom trailer built for the boat, and it is perfect. This truck has zero problem pulling that combination, and I really, really like it. This truck is the reason that I chose to trade in my 6.7. I knew someday, unfortunately that day has come way faster, my dad can't drive anymore. He would have been driving just fine had it not been for ALS. He's such a trooper. With his knee replacement, he got his left knee replaced, he got his clutch knee replaced. So the trip out to Lake Tahoe last fall was his last hurrah, really, with this truck. And that was, he was already scheduled his knee surgery, but that was like a given that he needed to have a knee surgery. He got through that amazingly, got through PT just fine, started driving the truck again. Well, that's when the ALS symptoms kicked in, and then, here we are today. I knew someday it was going to be passed down to me, which I am very excited about because, like I said, this truck is more special to me than it could be anything else. I mean, this is my dad's truck. There's nothing more special than that. And as it happened, it's a truck that is phenomenally bulletproof, really fun to drive, very fun to tow with, and it is not, the craziest in terms of, it's a 2500, the multi-link rear suspension, which works good for me, might not work good for you. To you, your dream might be, or, your perfect truck might be a mega cab 3500 or a dually with the G56. My point is, a 6.7 Cummins, a G56, and a manual T-case is darn near the most indestructible combination you could ever pick. Now, we're going to try and get into the Kroger gas station here, which is going to require some buffoonery, so I'm going to hop off and really quick go get some diesel, because we have very little fuel. All right, fuel has been procured at 10% off from Kroger, so thank you, Kroger. Being that I do daily drive a gas truck, I made special consideration to make sure that I selected diesel, not gas. You definitely don't want to do that if you drive multiple types of vehicles. You get used to putting one thing in, and that would be a very bad day. So I want to make one correction really quick. I just filled up, what I was trying to show you was that whole length average. The 900 miles is 2 tanks of fuel, not 1 tank of fuel. The range is about 450 miles or so at 16.5 miles when you figure the size of the tank. So I wanted to clarify that, because that's shame on me. What I was trying to show you was it was a really long average. And I misspoke by saying that it was one tank that 900 and something miles was, which isn't true. So it most likely was 2 tanks, and he just didn't reset it at some point. But point of the matter is that that's a very long average, and this truck totally debunks the theory or the point that DPF-equipped vehicles are terrible on fuel. I will say we've been getting constant harasses from FCA, or whatever they're called now. It's just so crazy when these car companies keep changing names and owners. It's very frustrating. But that this thing has a calibration that needs to be updated for emissions. I can tell you that this 100% DEF usage, where it's sitting at, my dad said the last time he filled the DEF was in Lake Tahoe before he left. So this truck barely uses any DEF. There's probably 2,000 miles on that, on a full tank, or it's still on full. So it's really amazing what this truck can do, and it's an example of, we could have, as much as I'd like to just have all emissions regulations removed, if we simply just calibrated them right so they weren't wasting fuel and they weren't wasting DEF for ridiculous targets, you can have a DPF and you can have excellent performance and fuel economy without it really negatively impacting you as a driver. The DEF range is crazy. The fuel economy is really good. There's no reason to worry about it too much. So I say you can't buy it anymore because you can't. You have to buy used, because in 2018, it was the last year to order a manual trans. And I was all queued up with Ram to order this exact truck. I wanted to order one for myself. It was good. What I was going to order was a 3500 version of this truck with Ram boxes and everything else. Well, I waffled, or I wavered, because I liked my Power Wagon. I hated the 6.4, but the Power Wagon was phenomenal off-road, and at the time, I was doing a lot of off-roading and just general, recreational trail riding, camping trips, overlanding before overlanding was cool, if you want, with just pitching a tent out the side of the truck when we got tired at night. I really loved the Power Wagon, and I didn't know that I wanted to get a new truck, so I waited and waited and waited. Well, we started riding more four-wheelers. In fact, my buddy ended up getting a 2018 Can-Am Mav X3 XRS, and that was kind of once we started bringing around a couple quads plus the side-by-side and the race car trailer, we found out really quick the 6.4 Hemi was just abysmal. I mean, we already knew it was abysmal, but when we were driving to the west side of the UP on a 4-day trip, you learned really quickly that stopping for fuel every 180 miles really sucked. I mean, it just wasn't any good. So that drove my purchase a lot to buy a 6.7 Power Stroke. But at that point, I'd already waited too long to buy a G56. In general, a G56 truck was bought by someone who knew what they were buying, and it's most likely a hotshot truck. There were certainly some recreational users that bought G56s, but I think you're most likely going to find out that G56s are commonly found in dualies and commonly found in 3500 long beds that were used as hotshot trucks. So, good luck finding a nice one, which they absolutely exist. This one is not for sale at any price. It just isn't. So, the G56, what is it like to drive? So, the torque of the engine is pretty phenomenal. You really don't have to put much thought into anything. I wouldn't recommend picking up a diesel manual trans truck, not knowing how to drive a manual trans, and then hooking up to a decent sized trailer, especially a wide one like a big camper or a big enclosed trailer or a big boat, because of the amount of the duty cycle you have as a driver when you're towing something that's 8.5, or like the powerboat is almost 12 feet wide. So you just have a lot going on when you're driving it, and then you add in the manual trans, and it can be a lot. We'll talk about several different things in the manual trans here, so stay tuned. I'm going to try and cover everything I can think of here. So, commonly speaking, parking brakes are kind of junk. They're manually actuated with cables, just like an old car, and they are, of course, foot actuated. And if your parking brake goes south and you have a manual trans truck, you're going to kind of be hurting a little bit. When we back the boat in the water, the parking brake is easily able to hold the truck in the boat, and we shut the motor off and put it in first gear. And that combination of both of them, we've never had the truck try and roll. We've never had any trouble at all. The truck is already in four-wheel drive, so the parking brake and the being in gear is acting on all four tires. So it hasn't been a problem. I will say, in a perfect world, if automakers weren't so damn cheap, is that having a hydraulic parking brake, like a line lock, where you'd hit your brakes and then you'd hit a line lock button, or if you had a mode in all the electronic ABS system where you could select line lock, like a lot of cars have these days, would be super duper handy, except for they stopped innovating with manual transmissions a long time ago. Now, your other option to get a Dodge truck, which, of course, as history has shown, in order to get your Cummins, you got to accept the Dodge. And we call them shipping crates for a reason. Now, I think that the later fourth gens are really pretty decent. 2014 and up, Ram did a lot to make these trucks a lot nicer to own. I think they're built pretty well. This truck is held up extremely well. It could use a little bit of cleanup, but it's in very good shape. It's unfortunately been through all the Michigan winters. Now, we do try and park it. We do try and keep it clean, but we don't have, that I know of, any rust starting on this truck, and it's been sparingly used for any recreational activities. I had to go pull a buddy out in a field one time, so it saw mud once. But it has definitely been well cared for and whatever, but it's a Dodge. So it's shipping crate. Keep that in mind when you're looking for them. I think that there's less electronic problems on the 2014 to 2018s than the earlier fourth gens, but always be cautious of electrical problems on a Dodge, any product from them. It's kind of like the Germans shouldn't be allowed to engineer electronic trunk releases and things like that. Well, FCA shouldn't be allowed to have anything electronic. This truck does have electric windows and electric locks and electric mirrors. We've never had a problem with that. But it has a lot less electronics because, of course, a manual shift transfer case and a manual shift transmission. It has a very basic Uconnect radio, which does work. The Bluetooth does work. The radio sounds nice. I mean, good enough. I love music. Music is a big part of my life. But the thing is that I'm not willing to have a ridiculous radio or to pay for it, I guess, in a vehicle, because just having some music is fine by me. It doesn't need to be crazy. I have experimented with audio in my Excursion, and in my Cummins they have pretty fancy radio systems, because the stock radio systems were so bad that I had to re-engineer a better solution. My Excursion had a pretty hefty amped radio system, and it sounded pretty good. But it didn't have subs, it had amp door speakers, and it sounded nice. But anyway, this truck, or this era Ram, Dodge, whatever you want to call it, has ample or acceptable radio, I would call it. Lower end, this is a tradesman who gets it sturdy. There isn't a glove box cover over there, the upper glove box. Just like my truck. My truck also doesn't have an upper glove box. And I'll tell you, it's not as annoying as you think, because your upper glove box generally gets used for quickie items. If you're going hunting with your buddies, your shotgun shells might go there. If you're going on a boating trip, maybe you keep your boat keys and a couple other things in there so you can grab them really quick, take off. Your sunglasses, extra stuff, your buddy's wallet, you know. It's not as annoying as you think. Honestly, I don't really miss having glove box door like I thought that I would, because that glove box portion has always been kind of like a catch-all. And a catch-all of generally actively used supplies. In this case, my dad has a map in there and water bottles. And Layla says hi. So it's a nice setup. There's nothing really wrong with it. We did get the aux switches, as always, and we haven't hooked any of them up, which is pretty common for me. I like to have them, and then I don't get around to using them for anything. That leads us into another conversation that we're going to have, is what is kind of the future goal of this truck, because it is not going to be the channel's fancy pants tow rig. But let's talk a little bit more about the trains a little bit. So you can definitely, and of course, it just turned green and now it's gonna, whatever. I don't really care. Yellow light, it's my light. Anyway, the G56 is very easy to use. The clutch is, I have really strong legs, so it's kind of like asking a fitness person if the run was an easy run today. It's like they already run 5 miles a day. It was an easy run for them. But for me, operating this clutch is a non-issue. I find it a very consistent engagement point. I find it very easy to use. What we're gonna do, spin it up in neutral, throw it into second, which is third, but so you can see a little bit. Just gentle acceleration. Now this truck, as you're gonna see, has steelies on it. 17-inch steelies and baloney skins. It holds its own. It is no demon, but it's fine. That's 80, you know, it does the job. And the thing about it is it almost accelerates just like that with a load behind it, because it's a Cummins and it just kind of doesn't care. I hate to pretend the whole you don't feel it thing, but you really don't. Any trailer that is under 10,000 pounds, it doesn't matter that it's back there. If the trailer is bigger, then its size is far more of a hindrance than its pulling power. If it's a bigger trailer or a bigger weight item, generally speaking, you're more interested in its size and being careful, so the weight of it doesn't really matter either. So this truck is kind of at its intended purposes, it's fast enough for what it needs to do. There's no doubt if you deleted it, or if you did a power adder emissions intact tune, which I have talked to Corey Willis, literally personally, about tuning this truck, and I'm debating on what I want to do. Because on this channel, we will not be exploring any illegal activities at all, because it is still federally illegal. And also, I really like Corey Willis, and I'd like to support his endeavors and his knowledge, expertise, and whatnot. And I was thinking it would be fun to put an emissions intact tune on this truck and see what that's like, because I've never driven an emissions intact tune. This would be a great truck to get rid of the dual mass flywheel and to put a nice organic and ceramic dual disc setup, like a 650 horse rated clutch basically, and put a nice little tune in it, a 100 horse tune or something. Put a lift pump on it, 100 horse tune, leave it emissions intact. What I'd like to do is put the Banks Monster Ram intake and the grid heater thing. So the one problem with this truck is that the grid heater bolt or nut that holds everything together supposedly in the intake manifold can fall down, and then the nut goes into the engine, and then the engine eats the nut, and that's a really bad day. So that is something that I would like to analyze, is what we can do to prevent that from happening. So that's on the list of things to do, number one. Number two, I hate the dual mass flywheel. The dual mass flywheel is so obnoxious. I hate listening to it. It probably does make it so that the engine is easier to drive and whatever, plus it helps you get out of the hole with the extra effective mass, and it's probably better for fuel economy and whatever, but I hate listening to it bang. I hate dual mass flywheels, they're stupid. So that's something that I wouldn't mind going away from. And so the one challenge of driving this truck is that the throttle response is crap. The pedal is made extremely numb by design. It's not the engine's fault. A Cummins can have a very snappy throttle. Anyone who's ever driven a tuned Cummins, my 03 Cummins is downright snappy because there is no lag between throttle input. First of all, it's a mechanical throttle pulling on a lever on the side of the pump. Second of all, it's around this, pretty sure it was the side pump, yeah. It is annoying when you're trying to rev match. You kind of gotta take your time in neutral, and you almost gotta hold your foot full throttle to get it to wing up to, if you're trying to downshift like you saw me do to 1500, or if you're trying to downshift to 2000 or whatever, to get into the next gear. So someone may ask, why in the world does having manual transmission seem like an advantage? I'm going to explain to you really quickly why. First of all, I have to assume that you know what you're doing in driving a manual transmission. When you know what you're doing driving a manual transmission, it is a huge, 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 huge asset. It allows you to be preemptive with your choices as opposed to the automatic transmission being reactive. And let's consider something. The Cummins is arguably, at least this Cummins, anything 2018 and back, is arguably one of the best diesel engines ever put into anything ever, but also one of the best diesel engines put into, for sure, a light-duty truck. they've always been backed by mediocre automatic transmissions. Now, I will say I have a built 48RE in my truck. It has been freaking wonderful. It is so fast. It's so smooth. It's so easy to drive. Like, the built 48 is really the way to go. The 68 is terrible. The Ison is terrible. So your options with this truck is if you got a 3500 HO, you get an Ison. And if you got a non-HO, you'd get a 68 RV. Neither transmission I want to have. So let's just get that. If you want to get a 6.7, you're kind of, and you don't want a manual, you're stuck with crappy automatics. If you could be in a situation where you could have a good automatic, let's just say Ford outsourced their 6R140 and let Dodge use it, Ram, whatever, FCA use it. That could be really great. I have not driven a 2025 Cummins. We've talked about it on the channel. My assumption is that 8-speed ZF transmission is going to be a freaking game changer for the Cummins platform. That is very exciting. That is an automatic transmission I could get on board with. Much like my 10-speed Ford, it's really good. As long as it's reliable, I don't really care because it does the job. With the manual transmission, especially going back in the day, instead of dealing with a sloppy OEM calibration on 48 RFE, or RE, excuse me, or dealing with a weak 48 RE, you would get a NV 5600 or an NV 4500, and you would be extremely happy with your choices. I think there was an older Getrag trains in the 90s too, but getting the manual would be a superior towing option to any of those automatic transmissions before they were built. Like I said, you can build a 47 or a 48 to be a pretty okay transmission pretty easily. But you could also just start out with a manual trans that works right in the first place because your brain is making it work right. That's the beauty of it. You can plan ahead. Let's just say I was out west right now, I was towing a trailer, and there's a grade coming up. I can be like, all right, I need to be downshifted ahead of time. I already know what gear I need to be in. We're going to speed up. We're not going to have the transmission upshift at a really stupid time. I want to be locked in gear at 2300, 2400 RPM in boost, cold air going in my motor because my intercooler's working great. And we're going to hit the hill with a head of steam so that we can climb up the hill. And that's something that you can very easily do with a manual trans, and it makes it really nice. Also, engine braking. This combination of the 6.7 with the G56 and the engine brake calibration, that is the original engine brake calibration, is absolutely unbelievable. This truck has an engine brake that cannot be beat by anything that has been produced before or produced since, besides a big rig, of course. For a light-duty truck, this thing is really, really special. So, for those reasons, it is a phenomenal work truck for anyone. The 2500 with the multi-link, like I've said, is really ideal for 12,000 pounds and down. And so basically all of your recreational activities. If you are, and it's not saying you couldn't do higher, you could. I haven't towed the Mini with this, but I've certainly towed around the equipment trailer with the compact tractor, which isn't very heavy. Towed the dump trailer with it, worked fine. I mean, you're going to be just fine, especially if you load your trailer properly. It's just that it's best, just like my F-250 was. 12,000 pounds and down. Doesn't mean you can't go higher, but it's really 12,000 pounds and down. If you're towing a big fifth wheel where you need the payload, or if you have a sliding camper, or if you're towing some really big stuff like a skid steer, mini excavator, whatever, you're going to want a 3,500. And that way you're just set up for success. And that kind of leads me into the conversation. We talked a little bit about how I would like to bulletproof this a little bit, is to make sure we have the grid heater fixed, put a better clutch in it, and for sure tune it. Like I said, I'd really like to talk to PPEI and Corey Willis and have his tune put in my truck. It's the problem with the emissions delete laws and all that stuff is our best minds got cracked down on. Our best minds in the diesel performance and the diesel efficiency spectrum. Diesel performance is all about diesel efficiency. And when we tell people who are tuning our government vehicles and in tuning the industry's vehicles for work and the industry's vehicle for play, which racing is where all racing and military applications as well as space are where most of our modern advancements have come from. When we stifle the space program, when we stifle racing, and when we actively fight against those things, and obviously I'm by no means am I pro-war, but pro-war development to protect our country has greatly improved our standard of living and the world standard of living. And I would like to see, I'd like to, let me get on a rant for a second. I would like to see all countries get together and be like, hey, trade is amazing. We can all get rich together. Let's stop fighting over stupid things like borders and accept our borders that we have and maximize our economies together and get freaking filthy, stinky rich together. And even if your one religion doesn't agree with the other, let's shake hands and agree we want to get rich together and let money be the driving factor of, protecting human life. That'd be great. But, we don't live in a perfect world, and I'm sorry about that. But anyway, got off the beaten path. Diesels have been maximized by people like Corey Willis reliably, and Corey Willis and others are offering emissions intact tuning, which is something that I'd like to take a look at, as opposed to risking, being that I have the channel. And there's a lot of people who watch my videos. I'm very proud. I want to share something really quick. 1 million views have been crossed as of this past week. And I'm very proud of that. So I thank all of you for the time that you've taken to get to know me and to enjoy my videos and to, watch this kind of journey. I watch you guys take a journey. You guys are watching me take a journey. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this immensely, and I hope that a new chapter is kind of going to unlock here in the future as the channel continues to grow. I hope to continue to bring interesting, different, and in content that's really going to entertain you beyond what normal television does. I think a lot of us I haven't had cable in 5 years because I only watch whatever movie I want to watch, whether it's on Prime or Netflix, and I only watch YouTube. And it's been a hugely improved way of life for me, for sure. So hopefully, I think a lot of you guys are doing a similar thing. So I gotta go drop my dog off to a groom. So I'm gonna do that super quick, and then we will get back with each other because this is not over. There's gonna be several videos about this truck here coming up. So keep an eye out. The long-term goals, we'll talk about that in a minute. I don't need to rush that all right here. Let me take care of my traffic interchange, and we'll talk more about this amazing truck. Well, just in the time we've been driving since we got fuel, 20.7 miles a gallon. The DPF does not ruin anything. It does if it's poorly calibrated. Do you guys ever get things screwed up, like two words that start with M? That was Marine City. We need to go to Marysville, not Marine City. Shame on me. So, we get to keep talking about the truck that I adore so much. I've never had any problems with finding gears. Synchros are really good. You could, as long as you can get your foot in here and really give it a good wing up, you can always get the rev or get the gears matched or the road speed matched the engine speed and find your gear. Never had a problem with that. Just never had a problem with really anything at all with this truck. So the future, I think what the future needs to hold for this truck, and we'll have a little bit more of a conversation about it, is I think we need to build the best overlander that we possibly can, because that's a part of my life that kind of I haven't had time to do. And instead of we learned along the way too some mistakes between pitching a tent on ground that had bugs around, or I got bit by a Mississauga rattler while I was hunting, so I'm freaking pathologically afraid of snakes. Always have been, but once you're bit by a snake, your tune changes, I think, substantially. I'm freaking afraid of snakes. To get off the ground, what my theory was, or what my thought is that the Ram chassis is phenomenal for setting it up for ride and handling and flex and comfort and things like that. So I'm not sure whether we want to run Thurin or Carly parts. I can look into that, but I would like to look into doing a really nice suspension system, fully replace everything that needs to be replaced, some really nice shocks, some really nice match springs, derate the truck so that it flexes really good, because we're not going to put a lot of weight in it. I'm pretty sure I can get a decked system for the Ram box bed, which is the Ram box bed is substantially different than a normal bed. Pretty sure I can get a deck system for it. And what I was thinking was if I could build my own basically ladder rack on top of the deck system. And what I was thinking was to make it quick removable. So we could have a rooftop tent on it. We could hang kayaks on it if we want to. That way we can maintain the utility of the Ram boxes, because if you put the normal ladder rack would go on top of the bed, which could interfere with the RAM box functionality. We certainly don't want to do that. The RAM boxes are super cool. I've put, like right now there's a hedge trimmer in one of the RAM boxes, but I put things like a Minn Kota trolling motor in the RAM box. We filled one of the RAM boxes up on my Power Wagon and on this truck with ice and had a cooler on the left side of the truck. We've done a lot of different things with the RAM boxes. They're really cool. So that's something very, very cool. I have and I'll put a picture in right here, Dougie, right here. It is crazy to me how few pictures I have of his truck on my phone, but then again, it is his truck. I got those wheels for him just to have a better looking set of wheels on because it had Steelies, and those are the tires off my Power Wagon that still had a little bit of life left on them. They will be going back on the truck. Yeah, as long as I can find it, of this truck. I have had this truck on the YouTube channel before, and what I'll do is I'll make a playlist of this truck, including this video, of the videos that I made about it before the channel was big. I don't think any of you guys have seen them, or a lot of you guys haven't. If anyone has been around since the beginning, let me know in the comment section here. I have a set of Method bronze wheels for this truck that look absolutely killer. There's a wagon right there. Set of Method bronze wheels, and I was thinking about trying out. I have really wanted to try the new Toyo RT Pros, and I was thinking that this truck would be a perfect candidate to try out the Toyo RT Pros in probably 35 12.5, nothing too crazy. And those were going to the 17-inch rims that I already have, the bronze Methods that I already have. They're Method gray. Oh, wait a minute, they're not bronze. They're gray. They're not bronze. They're gray. They're gray Method grids, and they look really, really cool. I have bronze wheels for my Super Duty. Anyway, so some lighting would be cool. Winch bumper, front and rear would be really cool. And I was thinking I could just build winch bumpers myself, try something new. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, well, I could, but White Knuckle Off-Road makes some really awesome rock sliders. I was thinking about that too. Now, I don't have any relationship with any of these companies. I'd like to. If any of you guys work at these companies or are, represent these companies, let me know. I'd like to talk to you guys. The thing is that I already kind of know what I want to build, and I already kind of know who makes the best stuff for things. So, I guess you're kind of getting name drops because I respect your companies and your products, and I've seen that you've been involved in the industry for a long time. It'd be really cool to do something like that. I'd like to take this truck, not only for my own recreational purposes, going camping with friends, family, whatever, but I think it'd be really cool to go do something like drive out west, take this down Route 66 with and go to Overland West, or to go to Overland East, or to go to SEMA. Maybe I'm dreaming a little bit too big, but I've seen SEMA builds, and I'm pretty sure that I can do a little bit better job than that. So if you guys would like to see, for instance, this truck go to SEMA, but not done up stupidly, done up like, wow, that truck is ready to kick some ass. And by that I mean front and rear lockers, re-geared, nice tires, nice wheels, nice suspension system, an overland setup, lots of storage, front and rear winches, like really done up well. I think that would be something I'd like to do. And, my father is still here, so I don't want to talk about it past tense. But first of all, he'd be really jazzed about that. I already kind of talked to him about it, and he thought that sounded like a really cool use of his truck. And see, hard to talk about, but anyway, it'd be something that he would really want to be involved in and see through. So I think it's something that I would like to do with this truck. We're going to see if we can blink this guy over. What do you think? Just a little bit farther? Oh, he's already going to turn his signal on. I was going to blink him to let him over, but whatever. It just sucks. I don't know if any of you guys said. A lot of people have said that they know people who have had ALS. Just an awful, awful thing. But anyway, I think that's a direction I'd like to go, because let's be realistic, this is not going to ever be a heavy-duty tow rig, because it's not a 3500. It has a different frame. It has different rear suspension, and that's just fine, because I think we can utilize this truck to its own strengths, which are incredible fuel range, incredible ease of driving, and the Ram boxes are just so awesome. It's already a short wheelbase, not short wheelbase truck, but four-door short bed is a great platform to do overlanding stuff on. And like I said, it's kind of a part of my life that would be that I haven't had time to do a lot, and we kind of learned the hard way about some rains. We got caught in a couple thunderstorms. I mean, it kind of standard stuff. You go tenting enough and you run into some things and you learn from it. And when you look at it, a rooftop tent is a pretty good idea to get yourself off the ground, and I love the idea. And I think it'd be really cool to kind of set this up. I would really like to go do some cross-country travel with this truck, and just have a good time with it. And try to not put it into bad situations and whatnot, and certainly don't want to go take it on the Rubicon Trail. Talking a little bit about manual transmissions and off-roading, as long as you have the gear reduction to not be slipping the clutch all the time, burning the clutch out of it, and you have the torque to be able to do it, which of course the 6.7 does, and we would definitely look at re-gearing the truck, maybe to 410s or something like that, just so we have a little bit of gearing on our side. As long as you have those things in your tool belt, off-roading a manual transmission is phenomenal. And the reason is because you get an added level of control over the torque going to the tire. Not only do you get to use the throttle, but you also get to use the clutch to modulate and decide when the power goes to each tire or the power goes to the tires. So it's something that works very, very well, as long as you know what you're doing. So I've had quite a few opportunities to off-road manual trans vehicles. I really like doing it. I really like the advantages that they have of direct power sent to the tires. A lot less heat goes into the automatic. Their automatics, on-road vehicles are designed to work on road. They're basically not designed at all to do any kind of flexing, to do any kind of strenuous work for a long period of time at low speeds, which is exactly what off-roading is. And you wonder why automatic transmissions tend to overheat when you off-road them. Well, you can get around that entirely by running a manual, and you're never going to have an overheating problem with your engine, or with your clutch, or with the transmission, because you don't have oil to overheat. Now, you could overcook your clutch, but let's try and avoid that. And you get around that by properly having your vehicle geared for the situation, and definitely having good enough low range, which this box should have enough low range for what we're trying to do. And crawler gear on this is pretty extreme. It's like 529 or something like that. I don't know the exact number. Maybe I'll put it in right there. Maybe I'll put all the gear ratios in right there, Dougie. Put it right there. But it's definitely, the overdrive gear isn't crazy, so you probably wouldn't want to run 456s with, for sure, 35s, because the trans is really set up to be a work trans. Is kind of what it needs to be doing, is spinning those RPMs. This thing literally has baloney skins on it, just so you know. They are tiny, they're worn, and they have to go. Look at that. I think that's called antimatter gray. That is a really cool color on the Fords. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about RPM and Cummins, just so we can talk. A Cummins engine is designed to run all day and all night, only stopping for oil changes anywhere in its RPM band below the red line. It is, anyway, I had to take an exit there. Just a really quick point. A lot of people are going to look at just the RPM calculators and be like, wow, even with 342 gears, just hit my phone there, what the heck, Doug? Even with 342 gears, it turns a lot of RPM on the highway. Even if you put 33s on it, it's still going to turn a lot of RPM on the highway. Know that it isn't in your advantage or in your court, or it isn't good for you to try and undergear a vehicle to the point where in overdrive it's sitting at 1200 RPM cruising down the highway. Know that this truck is able to get pretty darn incredible fuel economy without running crazy low RPMs on the highway. And know too that as soon as you put load on a vehicle, that you need to have that RPM to keep that load moving. So it's done for a reason. When you have a vehicle that you're going to be towing heavier loads with, you certainly don't want to have such a low RPM in your maximum overdrive gear that you can't even use your maximum overdrive gear. So keep that in mind. It's not the end of the world. And I guess as someone who has a lot of experience running 410s, 33s, and a 48RE, screaming down the highway 85 miles an hour at like 2,500 RPM, and my truck makes like 30 pounds of boost cruising on the highway doing that. I can tell you, 230,000 miles of experience with that engine, is that the Cummins is no worse for wear. It doesn't burn a lick of oil. It's amazing how reliable a Cummins engine is, and it is definitely made to do things like that. So I'm going to wind my way the back way. Many of you guys know 94 is all screwed up, and I don't want to sit in a traffic jam for 10 eons. So I'm going to wind my way through here following GPS, and we will talk later. So I want to show a takeoff really quick. First, friction point, just like we talked about. Feed in a little bit of throttle. Oh God, I'm on a dirt road, so sweet Jesus. Like I said, this truck is baloney skin, so it's a little rough. But as you can see, it's super easy to drive. I mean, you darn near let the clutch up and it takes care of itself. We'll do a performance takeoff at some point, or semi-performance, I suppose, but it's an important part of it. I hope you guys, if you're interested in driving manual transmission, check out my how to drive a manual transmission video. I think it's really good and really helpful. I think that it would expose a lot of you to basically a decade and a half of my driving of manual transmissions condensed into 40 minutes. And even if you watch part of it, I think it's going to really alert you to the challenges and how you conquer each challenge while you're driving on the road. I tried to intermix a lot of different driving situations that I commonly encounter. So let me know how I did too on that. And remember, if you want to see more about this awesome red Ram 2500 with G56 shaky stick, make sure to subscribe and check out other videos, and I'll make a playlist, like I said, about this truck. But I'm going to try and make a bunch of videos about this truck because it's kind of it's a very special truck to me, I guess, and I really want to talk about it more. I want to do more with it. So yeah.